10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 166. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 166 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you had a great week, good holiday week for everybody in the United States celebrating the 4th of July. And we apologize for not putting out a Motivation Monday podcast this week. It was the combination of the holiday weekend and I was out on the road with a band traveling, so just was not in the cards to get that Monday podcast out. You know that we rarely miss them, so we will have more coming at you in the future, but we do apologize for that lack of an episode on Monday. Anyway, we are here on Friday with you, as we always are. Before we jump into the episode, just wanted to let you know that you can get the PDF to this one and all other episodes that we've ever done by signing up to become a patron of this podcast. And what that means is for a very, very small amount of money every month, $3 to be exact, you can download all the worksheets that we produce with these shows. And that really allows you to take your playing even further. And one note, I've been receiving requests from a lot of people that play bass clef instruments to start producing PDFs in bass clef, and we are going to start doing that. In fact, we did it last week, and we're going to do that from now on. So if you're somebody that was hesitating to sign up because you couldn't get your bass clef worksheets, there will now be bass clef worksheets included with every single episode. So you can sign up to be a patron by going over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon links, and going over there and signing up to pledge your support and become part of the family. We had a bunch of people sign up this week, so I got to give them a shout out. Thank you to Chris, Misa, Michael, Jeffrey, Kim, and Bobby. Thank you guys so much for choosing to support the show, take your education to the next level, and make sure that it keeps coming at you. All right, let's get into this week's episode. So as I mentioned, we are going to continue our discussion on playing double time lines this week. So in last week's episode, we talked about some of the principles behind playing double time. We talked about the fact that generally you're going to have to straighten out the notes when you're playing 16th notes. They don't swing. We also talked about some of the articulation issues that come up when you're playing twice as fast as you normally do. The fact that you're really going to have to smooth out those lines, and a lot of your articulation tendencies aren't going to work when all of a sudden you're playing twice as fast. So this week, we're going to take those concepts and those tenets of last week's episode, we're actually going to put them into action and give you a plan for practicing them and actually doing this stuff in a real life situation and getting to the point where you can actually throw a double time line into your solo in a way that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to look for. So what I've done is I've given you, instead of just a scale, as I gave you last week, as sort of a starting point, what I've done now is I've actually written out a 2-5-1 lick, right? So it starts out as a 3-measure 2-5-1, and then when we play it in double time, it shortens to a 2-measure 2-5-1. And that is what the whole episode is going to be based off of. When you first start actually trying to insert double time lines, what I want you to do is I want you to search for tunes that have a lot of short 2-5-1s, meaning that the 2-5-1 happens in the span of 2 measures instead of 3 or 4 measures. And that's really where we're going to start to apply this stuff. Playing double time lines over a full 3 to 4 measure 2-5-1 progression is really, really difficult. So we're not going to do that just yet, because then your material really has to be stretched out and you have to be able to have all these skills that maybe we don't necessarily have yet. But if we start applying our double time material to short 2-5-1s, we're going to find that we have a lot of success right off the bat. So let me first start by playing this 2-5-1 that I've written for you, and I'm going to do it in the exact same fashion as what I did last week, meaning I'm going to play it single time, and then I'm going to play it double time at the exact same tempo so that I can feel it in both different fashions of playing it. So here's the lick on your PDF, first in single time, second in double time. So the first thing you're going to think about is just practicing that line with a metronome or Drum Genius, thinking about all the things that we talked about last week. Get it feeling really good before you go on to the next thing that I'm about to show you, all right? It's got to feel good. It's got to feel comfortable. Record yourself playing it. Really work out the kinks in getting your double time feel down initially before you go on to this next step. All right, so as I mentioned, the next step is going to be finding tunes that have one measure 2-5-1s. And in this key, there's a couple of tunes that I can point to right away. So this is a 2-5 in concert B flat that we're looking at here, that this line is written over. So there are two tunes that are particularly really good for this. I'm going to tell you exactly what tunes and where this 2-5 occurs in these tunes. So the first place is in a tune that we have done for Tune of the Month, so something that you should be familiar with, and that is in measure 4 of Confirmation. That is a short 2-5 in the key of concert B flat. So that is a perfect place that you can insert this lick. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to rest in every other measure beside this one. This is the only measure I want you to play in. So now what you're doing is you're doing it in sort of a half real life situation. You would never play a solo where you only played in one bar, but now you're actually listening to the chords going by, you're playing over a real progression, and then you're inserting this line into the mix, actually doing it in time, in real life, with real changes going by. So check out what this sounds like. You will hear the progression start at the very top, and then you will hear me play this line in measure 4 of Confirmation. So you can hear that fits really beautifully over that measure. And the nicest part about searching for those one measure 2-5-1 spots is that you have already hopefully learned a bunch of material over long 2-5-1s. So when you are starting to play double time, literally all you have to do is just double the speed of that material. It doesn't require you to insert any new material. It just requires you to be able to pull off the material you already know how to play at twice the speed. And that is why we are searching for these spots first. Then later you can expand your double time playing to long 2-5-1s and, different places where you're not currently doing that. All right, so the second spot that we are going to look for is in rhythm changes. So if we think about the first 4 measures of rhythm changes, we actually have a 2-5 in the key of B flat twice. We have one in measure 2, and then we also have another one in measure 8. So we're going to utilize both of those spots to our advantage, and we're going to have to play it twice in 8 measures in this particular progression, which is going to require us to think on our feet a little bit more quickly. But again, I'm not going to play in any measure besides measure 2 and then again in measure 8, right? I'm going to rest in every other measure. Let's check out what this one sounds like. So I think that this is an absolutely great way to get started with playing double time, is to play some pre-programmed stuff. If you just kind of set yourself loose, it's not going to end well, and you're just going to end up playing kind of a bunch of nonsense. Believe me, I did that for years before I really started to work on this in the correct fashion. So I think that those two tunes are great examples, but you can find hundreds of other examples of tunes with short 2-5-1s that you can go ahead and put one of your pieces of existing vocabulary, but just play it double time instead. And then you're starting to latch your ears onto what it sounds like and what it feels like to actually play that double time in real life. So go ahead and try this. And one other suggestion I have for you, if you're really going to start to get into this right away, start to insert a little bit more double time coming into the lick and then coming out of it. So you're using the lick that I gave you as your home base, and then you're just starting to extend it a little bit on each side. And that can be a great way to start playing longer and longer double time lines with something that you know really well, that you know you're going to play in there somewhere as kind of your anchor. And I think that would be a good way to approach this. So I hope that this has helped you. I hope that this will result in you finally being able to play some double time licks if that is your goal. It does add quite a bit of excitement to solos. We all know and love when our favorite artists start to play those crazy double time lines. They're very impressive and kind of very fun sounding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out the episode by actually playing over confirmation a little bit, and I'm going to start to put in a little bit more double time here and there so you can start to hear what it sounds like as you get more and more going in terms of double time. Now, notice that I'm also keeping the play along very slow. It's at 90 BPM, so I'm still not increasing this into, super fast, getting in over my head. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm simply trying to develop double time as something I can reliably pull off, and then I'll start to speed it up later on. So drop me any questions that you may have in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. You can find that on Facebook. Just type that into the search bar, request to be added, and I will certainly get on letting you in right away. We try to have discussions about these episodes in that group. Hope you got something out of this. Hope this will lead to some new strides in your playing. And we'll see you next week with some brand new episodes. Remember to grab the PDF. Go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and get your hands on that PDF. Support the show, all that good stuff. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.